Hey guys, it's Dani. Today it is the 1st of June and it's time to recap the orchids that we had in bloom for the month of May. Now, I have to tell you something. I filmed separately some orchids that don't have flowers anymore and I managed to delete the folder. And so for some of these orchids, I will not have really nice close-ups, but luckily I did film them in different videos in the past month, so I'm just gonna use the footage from that. Sorry, but it happens. I'm clumsy sometimes. So first let's start with the blue orchids. We had two kind of bluish orchids in bloom this month. First of all, the Dendrobium reginae, which is a species orchid. I also did a spotlight on this video this month because it's the very first time it blooms for me. Ooh, it's very windy outside today. So the description of this orchid might be fresh in your minds, but let's recap a little bit. It is a very pretty dendrobium orchid which produces very close to blue flowers. It is sadly not fragrant, but I think the color really compensates. If you are a fan of true blue or very close to blue orchids, definitely this is an orchid to have. So far, it was very vigorous for me. It wasn't finicky, but this orchid is described as a cool grower, intermediate grower, so I suspect it might struggle a little bit in very high temperatures. The way you can make the effects of the high temperature a little bit less damaging is by keeping the orchid hydrated. And this is one orchid that doesn't like drought. It is recommended that you keep it evenly moist, and since I'm using inorganic medium, I have no issue maintaining it constantly moist. There is nothing to break down actually, and she loves it. So overall, I think it is a hardy orchid. It is quite suitable for many environments and home growing environments, but I wouldn't go overboard with the temperature and I would maintain it properly hydrated at all times. The next bluish type of orchid we had in bloom was the famous Vanda Pachara Delight, and this has to be one of the oldest orchids in my collection. After an entire year when she didn't bloom at all due to my own mistakes, finally we have blooms from this orchid, and they are as pretty as ever. This time around I have a little bit of damage on the edges of the flowers, as you can see, but we did have a pretty dry and warm spell recently, so I believe this is a cause of that. However, the orchid is bouncing back, doing very nicely, and if you don't know much about this orchid, she is a very vigorous grower, capable of blooming 3 times a year if conditions are warm and sunny. But of course, if you manage to stress it like I have, it will not bloom at all, and that's a shame. But I suspect from now on we're not gonna have these big breaks from her behalf, and even though the flowers are not fragrant on this orchid, it's sure to put a smile on your face with the beautiful color and of course the huge flowers. From two non-fragrant orchids, let's move on to a really fragrant orchid, and this is one that I lost the footage of. This is the Dendrobium anosmum crossed with Dendrobium cretaceum. Now this is again a pretty old orchid in my collection, but I'm guilty of not treating her properly, so we didn't get to see a lot of blooms from this orchid along the years. However, this time it created more flowers than ever in my care, although she can definitely do more than this. So as I was saying, this is a very fragrant orchid. The first time it bloomed for me, the fragrance was kinda mild. The conditions at the time were pretty gloomy and pretty cold, so it's understandable. This time, however, she put on quite the great fragrance, which in my opinion reminds of Christmas to me. It is said that the flowers of the anosmum smell like cranberries. Well, they kinda do. However, in my mind and with my memories, it smells like orange peels and actually Christmas tree, the foliage of the Christmas tree. The fragrance is quite intense, but it will not kick you out of the room because it is very refreshing. I don't think it is very bothersome, although some of the hybrids of the anosmum for some people are a little bit bothersome. Maybe it is a particularity of this cross, but the fragrance is absolutely refreshing, and I'm really looking forward to next year because this orchid is supposed to create a lot more flowers than this. All the nodes of a cane are capable of producing flowers, and also the canes can grow up to be 1 meter long or even more. Next orchid we had in bloom this month is another kinda oldie in my collection, the the Encyclia cordigera. And I have this one for about 2 years or 3 years already. I think 2 years. Finally, it managed to bloom after being a little stressed with the transport and everything. This is a fragrant orchid, and actually it is a very popular orchid for smelling like chocolate. Now, I do have the memory of the cherry baby in my mind very vivid. This orchid does not smell like chocolate to me. Indeed, I will give it has a sort of cocoa feeling to it, but it's a little bit watered down, it's not as sweet. So maybe, if you will, it smells a little bit like dark chocolate or cocoa, something of the sorts. But it's not a one-to-one comparison. However, I agree, it smells beautiful. Now, my particular variety, as you can see, doesn't have a solid purple lip. There is also that variety available. It is called Rosea, which, PS, little spoiler, I did purchase myself. And it is said that that variety has a little bit of a bitter smell. Well, what better way to find out than to purchase it and compare them? However, for now, we will do with this particular variety, which is really, really beautiful, and it does have a beautiful smell. It just doesn't smell like chocolate. That's all. Alrighty, next up another orchid that I lost the footage of, but not to worry, I filmed her a lot. This is the Iwanagaara Appleblossom. I think the most impressive display that I have this month from an orchid. This is not a new orchid, I cannot say it's really, really old, but it's not new either. My variety, I think it's the pink variety, not sure about the official name, but it does have more pink than other Ivanagaras. And also the colors are more intense. So this year I managed to obtain a display of 8 flowers on this orchid. It didn't have as many flowers when I purchased it, so things must be going well. The best thing about this orchid though, apart from the ease of care, is the fragrance. Many people describe the fragrance as Freesias, and to me it does really resemble Freesias, but also it's a mixture with a type of fruit-bearing tree, maybe apple blossoms, why not? In any case, I find it to be a very beautiful, springy and light scent, although it is pretty powerfully fragrant, that it absolutely fits with the season in which it bloomed. Alrighty, I'm now realizing that there are quite a few orchids to go through. Next orchid we had in bloom was the Kirchara Jairak Kiss Spot Lip. Ooh, I remember the name, which is a new bloomer for me, but it's definitely not a new orchid. So this is a Cattleya complex hybrid that produces not big, quite tiny flowers, but with a very striking lip. Like the name suggests, it is pretty spotty and pretty stripy. The stripes are pretty dark purple and are displayed on a white canvas, but the sepals and petals are buttery green, I would say, with a few freckles. Looking at it now, it doesn't stand out in the crowd, does it? But it is actually pretty charming. Now, I wouldn't call this a fragrant orchid, but it does have a sort of a scent. I cannot call it really pleasant, but not very bothering either. Really hard to describe. I would say maybe a root of some sorts. You know, there are some medicinal roots that they use in creams and all of that, and they have a little bit of a pungent smell. It, to me, kind of reminds me of that with a little bit of sweetness. Brassica-like sweetness. And at this point, I don't think you understand anything, so I'll stop right there. It is not considered a fragrant orchid, but it's not completely scentless. The shape of the flower, spike even, and the entire orchid is absolutely charming. I really, really like this orchid. Another orchid that we don't have footage of is the Kaisers Breasts, but I think I filmed it some time ago. So this year we did have quite the nice display. I had 6 or 7 flowers as opposed to last year when I had only 2 flowers, or 3. I think 1 but blasted. Anyway, the flowers are definitely not long lasting. Each individual flower lasts for about a week and the whole display maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I filmed this orchid at the beginning of the month actually, in full bloom, and shortly after that it lost all of its flowers. However, the flowers are really nice, really waxy, and I particularly love the fragrance because it reminds me of Gardenias. This is again a pretty old orchid in my collection. It bloomed twice already, and as it matures I see the flower displays better and better, so I'm hoping for great things from this orchid in the future too. The next orchid we had in bloom is the Dendrobium Sairale. Yet again, I lost the footage. I'll see what footage I can gather. Now, this is a pretty peculiar orchid. It is blooming, it has more flowers on the way, so we'll do another video in the future, but I don't see any roots. Maybe they're somewhere in there. The canes don't get excessively shriveled, so something gives it hydration, and it's not the leaves. These are the only leaves it has. And this entire orchid plus the blooming cannot get sustained by only those leaves. I don't know, it is a mystery orchid to me, but it managed to bloom, and I'm just gonna let it do its thing. So this is not a fragrant orchid, but the shape of the blooms is just so beautiful, and I do have 3 little flowers that are still intact. I'll get a close-up of those so you see how it is. The colors are pretty striking on this orchid, although they stay in the earthy tone. I'm sorry about that noise, it's very windy. The Sairale Helix, it's an orchid that I've always wanted. This type of orchid actually with the twisty petals. If you see, the sepals get twisted inside, they arch inside, while the petals get twisty on the outside, if that makes any sense. And anyway, it looks really, really beautiful. The lip has a veiny type of pattern to it. The colors are pretty earthy, but they do stand out a little bit more, I think, than the Kirchara. If this orchid would have a fragrance, it would be even better, but it sadly doesn't. However, if you're into very wild shapes of flowers, I think this would be an orchid for you. Mind you, the flowers are pretty tiny. They're actually quite tiny. They're not big flowers. Alrighty, the next orchid we had in bloom is a Miltoniopsis, and this is the Herr Alexander, which is actually my favorite fragrance-wise. I do feel like Miltoniopsis have a little bit of a difference when it comes to fragrances from the varieties, and this smells the best for me. However, I'm always unlucky with this particular one. It is the one currently that is not doing all that great. She doesn't really want to grow roots, and that's a little worrying, but we'll see what we can do. Anyway, color-wise, she's not very flashy. She has white blooms, as you can see, but I do happen to enjoy white blooms. And of course, it's a very popular hybrid already that I think you will always see in shops. If they bring Miltoniopsis, most probably they will have the Herr Alexander as well. The display is not very fascinating. I have 3 little flowers this time. Oh, and P.S. this is a smaller flowered Miltoniopsis. Again, in comparison to the others, I think only the Newton Falls has these small flowers. The other ones have bigger flowers. But yet again, she compensates with the fragrance. So, you thought things were over? No, we have the Phalaenopsis, and we have quite a few of them. So, let's start with the Phalaenopsis Rio Douro, which has a beautiful display. I purchased this one for my birthday last year, and yes, the spikes are sequential. These are the spikes she came with. She didn't have time to produce a new spike, but they've all bloomed. And look at her. This type of orchid cannot really bloom pendant, cascading like this other one. It's just not her nature. She has in her parentage the Violacea, which is a sequential bloomer but doesn't have many blooms at one time. So the display is really good for what this orchid is capable to do. And of course, it is really fragrant. Now, people describe it a little bit lemony. I cannot describe it lemony, but it doesn't make me right. So if you will, this orchid smells a little citrusy, maybe lemony. I'm not entirely sure. All I can say is that it is powerful, it is lovely, mouth-watering, a little bit fruity in my opinion. Definitely worth having if you like Phalaenopsis. Next to it, don't mind this one, she's not in full bloom yet. Next to it is one, I identified it as the Brother Sarah Gold, and in many aspects it does look like it. But it also kind of looks like one called Phalaenopsis Peabody. So with this one, I am unsure about the ID, to be honest with you. I personally believe it's a Sarah Gold variety hybrid of some sorts because it shares some traits, but it might very well be the Peabody as well. So let's call her No ID number 1, just because my previous ID might be actually wrong. Now she has 2 flower spikes, not a lot of flowers on the spikes, but I don't think this orchid is capable of producing that cascade, so I'm pretty happy with the display. So, No ID number 1. This is No ID number 2. Let's call her Pink Veiny One. Yet again, it's a No ID. If I search a lot on the internet, I might be able to find her ID. I've seen her around quite a lot, but for the purposes of this video, I'll call her No ID number, 2. So if you want to vote for this one, you have it down below in the description. No ID number 3. Oh, just look at this one. This is a harlequin type of Phalaenopsis, but the background is not white. It's actually yellow, and it is capable of producing a lot of flowers, a lot of branches. She has a branching type of blooming, which I really like in a Phalaenopsis. I think this is the most impressive display. You guys should decide. Next to it, we have a No ID number 4. Let's call her Yellow and Orange Lip No ID Phalaenopsis, with again quite a pretty display. And this is not the Gold Treasure or no, Golden Beauty. Remember I had one in the past that looked like this one? It's not. The yellow is not that orangey. It is actually quite yellow in reality, and it has quite an orange lip. It's not red or purple. And next to it, this is actually my favorite. It's a white Phalaenopsis, but I made the cascades on it. Oh, one of the flowers is going away. No. Anyway, she had quite a lot of flowers, and I managed to obtain that cascading effect that I like. And P.S. many of these Phalaenopsis were received last year, very dehydrated and sunburned actually, and in very poor condition. So the bounce back is actually pretty nice. And speaking of which, I'll share with you down below the video with these orchids when I receive them, just so you see how they looked like and how they look now. And the last one, not this one, No ID number 4 or 5, what is it? Let's call it the Burgundy No ID Phalaenopsis. It's one with a very wonky display. She has a flower spike there and a flower spike here. It's not fragrant. None of these are fragrant except the Rio Douro. But if you take them as a display, really, really wonderful. I think I do have another Phalaenopsis, so let me film that one really fast as well. So this will be no ID number 5 or 6, what is it, or 4. Let's call her the Spotted Burgundy no ID. This is one that I purchased recently at a discount. I paid €2 for it, and she didn't really have any viable flowers, but I had a feeling she would be pretty. Indeed, she is pretty. Look at those really pretty flowers. I've seen her around. She's not a rare hybrid or anything, and I'm guessing I can find the ID, and at some point I will. But she's a very, very common hybrid. At some point you will run into it in the flower shops or garden centers, most probably. And now the novelties. We do have some new orchids that I received with buds or flowers, or that I purchased. So let's mention them as well because they had a nice display. First of all, the BC Hippodamia that I made a spotlight on. It is such a pretty orchid. Big flowers in comparison to the canes and the leaves. Also fragrant. It has a powdery, flowery type of fragrance. It did intensify as days went by. So in the beginning it didn't smell much, but then it got pretty strong. So definitely it is a fragrant Cattleya, and it smells quite beautifully. I really love the dotted pattern on the sepals and petals, and that lip, which is so broad. It's simply to die for. I really like it. Really happy I made this choice. I'm just a sucker for spotted Cattleyas. And we have another new orchid to the collection. It's not new, it's a replacement. It's the Miltasia Shelop-Tolkens. I saw it for sale. Mine has Fusarium, and sadly it was declining so bad, and I don't think there was anything I could do to help it. So I did have a replacement for it. I still have it in my collection, and it's really nice to have it. The blooms are not spectacular, as you can see. I'm missing that really nice purpley lip, but I had this happen with my old one as well. It kind of happens to me a lot that I buy an orchid which doesn't look so great when I purchase it, but then when it reblooms with all the care and all the nutrients, the colors are more intense. So yeah, I have no doubt that the blooms will look better in the future when it will rebloom, but for now, she's new, she has blooms, she's pretty, and in case you didn't know about her, of course you can Google it and learn more about it. And P.S. you have the names of all of these orchids written down in the description, so you can Google them and learn more about them, and also don't forget to vote. Which of these orchids that you just seen was your favorite? I think it will be a little confusing with the Phalaenopsis, but I'll try to name them something that will remind you of how they actually look like. So check the description down below. In order of appearance in this video, I will mention them in a list. And if you wish to participate into the Orchid of the Year competition, then just let me know which of these orchids was your favorite down below in the comments. You can only pick one, sadly. I know, there's a lot of them. Alrighty, so thank you guys so much for watching this video. Sorry it was very long. I was not expecting it to be this long. I filmed for an hour and editing will take even more. That's that. Alrighty guys, thank you for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, you know the drill. Give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe to my channel for regular orchids and plants videos. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. And with that said, I'll see you all next time. Bye. The BC Saint Andre is a really fast grower. The growths grow really fast, but also the buds. Remember 2 or 3 days ago, I was telling you this one had a bud and you barely saw it on video inside. Well, look at it now. You can definitely see it. So excited for this one. So incredibly excited. I think she will compete together with the Francis Fox and maybe the Millie Eiler for my favorite orchid. I suspect, I don't know. We're gonna have to wait and see.